My name is Mike Spalding. I've been doing security for too long. Doing security work. I've done a lot of different work. I've done firewalls. I've done, even like right now, I really am not doing any heavy firewall work. I'm actually doing more governance and junior CISOing lately. So that's kind of where I'm at in my career. That and architecture. I always get leaned on to do architecture work. Done a lot of different things. Did PKI back in the day, back when it was like brand spanking new. Firewalls, pen testing, DLP. DLP is always a fun experience. Afterwards, if you have any questions, you want to talk about me, you can. I just don't like talking about me. All right, we'll try it again. There we go. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So, data loss prevention, what is it? Well, think about what loss prevention is in the retail world. Has anyone ever heard of loss prevention people, like at, like Target or Kohl's or whatever? What they do is they try to prevent people from taking things that don't belong to them. Data loss prevention is along the same lines. Now, DLP-wise, it's really broken into three different components, okay? You've got network traffic, you've got endpoints, and you've got more or less like NAS or SAN space, those types of things sitting out in storage. For this talk, we're going to talk about data over the network. The reason why is because we're talking about firewalls and how they interact with DLP. To be brutally honest with you, DLP to me is one of those things where it's nice because it's easy. It's either yes or no. Either it has information that you want or it doesn't. It's not like, well, did the person do it? Can I prove intent? Sometimes in DLP you'll have to prove intent, but oftentimes you'll find that people that do that, they're either extremely foolish, they didn't know something had happened, or they flat out said, I can get in trouble for doing this. So our focus on this talk is data in motion for DLP. When it comes to endpoint, you can scan an endpoint, find socials, find different things. You can definitely dive into it and really pull whatever you want. Again, at its core, DLP is a simple yes/no. That's all it really is. It's what makes it such an easy product to work with. What type of data can we look for? Personally identifiable information. So we've got our socials, we've got driver's license numbers, we've got address, phone. Again, you think about it, a soc in and of itself is not really a big item. A soc combined with a name is a more useful item, and a soc combined with a name, with an address, with like a driver's license number is a very valuable item. All those things put together is what gives me a sense of value. As I add more components to it, it becomes more valuable. We look at PCI or payment card information, credit cards. Again, credit card number by itself. Everyone's actually got all the credit card numbers in the world, right? You just got to get the name that goes with it. So, PCI data, patient health information. I've always called this sexy talk because nobody likes to actually have like a filter on a DLP system called pornography. Lawyers, they do not like that you have a porn filter. But sexy talk, why do I always like having a sexy talk on a porn filter? A couple of reasons. First of all, people who are typically involved in porn usage at work, they're usually the ones getting infected and they're infecting others. Think about it. If I'm going to go ahead and have some malware out there, I'm going to go to where people typically want to go. Pornography is a great way of doing it. In addition to that, and I hate to say it, but management loves to bust people with porn. They typically do. Unless they are a C-level person in which they don't want you to talk about it. It really gets back to your management. I was actually on a DLP like proof of concept, and I learned that proof of concept, the data that you present, you should never present anything that's going to make them look bad necessarily, other than they have bad processes. But you shouldn't make any particular person look bad, because I once caught a SVP who was sending around a picture to all his friends that he shouldn't have been sending. And next thing I know, I've got HR in the office. I got people yelling at me, going, "How could you have released this information on this person?" I was like, "I just sent along the truth. This is what he did. You're HR. You go deal with it." They weren't really happy. So, but the thing is, a sexy talk filter on a DLP system, it can provide you a lot of value. It gives you a lot of ideas of all the BS that's going on. Okay? I've had people that go, that's kind of a big waste. Yes and no. I mean, it can be a waste. If you are going to bring in analysts as well, when you start bringing in like DLP analysts, when you interview them, are you religious to the point that you would be offended by people talking dirty, talking bad, doing stuff they shouldn't do? If it's the person on the other side of the cube, he likes to wear dresses at night, are you offended by that? These are the types of things that you have to go ask yourself. These are the types of things you'll find. When you find out that you start doing DLP work, you'll find out that the world's a really messed up place. And there's nothing you can really do about it. You just got to accept it and move on. If you're personally offended by it, you probably shouldn't be doing DLP. You should do some other facet of it. What else can I do? You can also run terrorists. If you got access to, the TSA, terrorist watch list or whatever list they've created this week, you can actually do those types of things. You can actually create a list of known people known to be money launderers. There's lists out there you can get from the federal government. You can also key off of investigations. You can put in email addresses, known accomplices. So I use DLP a lot to gather all types of information, not just credit cards and socials. Okay? This is really where you can start to work with your legal department and they're like, wow, security is giving me this great value. Security is delivering all these wonderful things to me. And you can really show that return on investment that people want to see. That's the problem with security. A lot of people look at it as a big black hole of money. And I hate to say it, but we're overhead. Show that return on investment. Show what you can do to bring, reduce risk, true risk investigations to your legal staff and to your HR department. It's really wherever you want to take it. So what should we inspect on DLP? Again, we're only looking at DLP over a network. You're going to be sadly disappointed, but there's really only 4 different categories I kind of look at. Because realistically, you're going to have a catch-all, dump-all, and it's going to kind of be everything else. SMTP. SMTP is the easiest one to work with DLP because nobody has an expectation that it's going to be there in, less than 30 seconds. All right? The expectations are lower for people. I can inspect it and block it. I can inspect it and allow it. I can inspect it and encrypt it. I have all types of different options. Makes it really nice, really convenient. SMTP or email, very easy to work with, okay? Port 80, a little easy or a little bit harder to work with. However, there is a higher expectation of speed. So, just kind of a show of hands, how many people use proxies, roughly? About half, yep. Okay. When you put in that proxy, what was the feedback that you got from your user community? I hate you. You security people are horrible. Why did you ever come to this world? Why do you work here? You guys are such horrible people. Those are the types of feedback that you get. So as you begin to impact people's ability to surf the web, guess what happens? They complain. Okay? With Port 80, I would highly recommend that if you're starting out, start out with a simple allow and monitor. You'll find that actually if you go around asking other people that do DLP how many of them actually block web traffic, like if somebody tries to send out credit card info, how many of them actually block it? Most of them don't. Some do. I give them a lot of credit because they've got a lot of money. We'll talk about that a little bit later on because there's something that you need to do this. But the expectation here is on speed. Speed is critical when people are surfing the web, and again, you have a business. The whole business isn't about security unless you're with the NSA. If you're with the NSA, well, you've kind of got that dream job in a way. There's just some other drawbacks, But with HTTP, it's a little bit harder, but it's pretty straightforward when you do a monitor only. So we look at something like this. I've got my Microsoft Exchange up here. By the way, if you don't like the vendors in here, input whatever you want. Imagine Lotus Notes. I don't care. Okay? I've got a Brightmail gateway. It's semantics. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. But I've got my gateway in here. And the gateway sends the traffic over to the DLP server, inspects it. DLP says, yes, there is PII, PHI, PCI in here. I'm going to send it to, in this case, a PGP mail gateway, or again, Zix or whatever gateway of your choice. And then I'm going to go ahead and send out that email with a link to a website. You can put in iron port, whatever you want to do. But it's pretty much an easy flow. So again, I hit my Exchange server, I hit a mail gateway, it sends it to a DLP server and inspects it. In this case, there was actually something important, so it sent it over to the mail gateway to encrypt. Let's try it again. There we go. So, what are the other two categories? HTTPS. The most difficult port to inspect or protocol to inspect. The reason why is this. You've actually got to crack open the actual SSL string. Okay? Now, it's funny. The first time I was told that I could do this, I'd need just this one box, more than enough people. Oh, 12,000 people in your company, not a problem. You know, we can definitely do that. You just need this one box. That box tipped over in the first day. It was sorely undersized. Okay, I can't emphasize that enough. With SSL, what you're going to find is you're going to need hardware. Okay, again, users have this high expectation of speed. I can't be delivering a web page in 120 seconds. You know, think about it. You've got to go back and say, is a 5-second delay okay? Is a 10-second delay okay? If I'm delivering a web page in 120 seconds, not acceptable. People are not going to like it. And you're probably going to catch a lot of grief for it. So in here, if you think about it, you have the ability to inspect and allow or inspect and block. Okay? You're not going to send it off to like a mail gateway. You're not going to do anything else with it. All you can do is basically allow it or block it. My initial response to you would be, or recommendation would be, do the allow, figure out how your traffic works, figure out what people are doing. Because what you'll find, most of the DLP traffic that goes through there that you discover, it's usually broken processes. Every now and then you've got that person that's, you know, sending their own social security number, and then you get into that whole debate of, do I even notify them that they're being stupid? But they are more than entitled to do what they want with their own soc. People do it. People will email their bank account information home, and they'll be like, oh, I feel so much better. It's all out of my Gmail. And, you know, you get into that whole debate of whether I really want to contact them. But most of the time what you'll find is that it's somebody who has, you know, sent to Yahoo Mail an Excel spreadsheet with all the employees' information in it and forgot that they had a soc in one of the Excel columns. You know, one of those columns that go up and down, it was hidden, they forgot about it, they didn't know, they were unaware, they just were forwarding it along to home because next week they're going to work from home. I actually had an HR person tell me that once. Hey, you just uploaded all of the entire employee email list up to Gmail. Why? Including their socials. Oh, I'm going to be on leave for the next 3 weeks. Why didn't you use the VPN? Because that was hard. So she used Gmail. I'm like, yeah, you got to delete that off Gmail. Because if somebody breaks into your Gmail, they steal all the employees', you know, socials, management's going to be a little unhappy. Oh, I never thought of that. And that's kind of how the story goes. So when you think about 443, think about, again, speed, think about expectations. Finally, you get in this last bucket, everything else. When it comes to network DLP, it's kind of everything else. Why? Because I'm not really concerned when it comes to connections with other people that I'm doing business with. Again, do I have a trusted relationship with them? Yes. Am I going to be sharing information that's sensitive with them? Yes. You can go ahead and monitor that, but it is going to be one of those things where I may draw resources that I don't really have that could tie up something that would be more important in an investigation. So FTP, every now and then you'll find a broken FTP process. Hopefully you don't allow FTP directly out. But you may find that there's bad guys who do this. If you really want to get involved, you can go out there and when it comes to DLP, they're kind of on the fringe right now. But you think about doing OCR, object character recognition, like pictures. A lot of the bad guys have figured out that what you can do is you can actually take screenshots and upload screenshots, and it bypasses DLP and, you know, my IDS, ID or IPS, whatever it may be. I can bypass all those great things that I have involved, and I can slide them through. There are some systems out there that are starting to get to that point where they're looking at OCR, they're looking at pictures to see if they see socials in them. So it's something to keep in mind. But those are still kind of on the fringe. I would just look at everything else as just this custom group of whether I really want to inspect it or not. Okay? Your user experience will vary. Again, it depends. Do people really have a big deal, a big weight on FTP? Maybe, maybe not. DNS, do they even know what DNS stands for? They probably don't. Usually you're going to find it's going to be custom anything else. So in this case, you'll see like I've got a connection here going to my firewall. My firewall sends it over here to like the web gateway. The web gateway is going to crack the encryption. It's going to send it to my inspection device for the web. In this case, I'm just using semantics because it's easy. I send that data, I send the response back to the web gateway, and the web gateway tells me, hey, did you have PII, PHI, PCI, whatever it may be, and it can decide to go ahead and block it. And then they go off to the internet and they don't even know that they got inspected. Now, there are some caveats to all of this. Here's another example too. I forgot I had this slide in here as well, but essentially, where would I drop this out? I could drop it out as a span port on the network. Preferably, you might start out with a span port. Your networking people will probably get a little angry. You probably want to move into a tap eventually. It depends on how much throughput you have. Okay? But when it comes to a tap, prices vary. Just remember that the span port, you will get some drops from it. It's not perfect. You could have some problems with it. People pull cables not knowing what they lead to, and next thing you know, your DLP system's down for 24 hours. Okay? A tap's probably the better option. All right. So what is my true headache in DLP? If I'm doing network-based DLP, or I'm doing network monitoring, it is encryption. Encryption stinks. It sucks, to be brutally honest with you. Okay? The overhead associated with encryption is a nightmare. Remember that wonderful sales guy who says, oh, hey, you only need one of these to do all your encryption needs. He lied through his teeth. He was lying badly. I'd almost say whatever the SC says, I would double it. I don't know. I don't know why these, I guess it's that whole effect of people don't want to spend money on boxes, but overhead with encryption is hard. We'll talk about some of the traffic trends, and then you can make some assumptions as to why over time it's getting harder. But you think about it, if everything's encrypted, how do you read it? It's also kind of funny too when people go, I've got my Next Gen Firewall, and 70% of my traffic's HTTPS. So what am I really looking at? I'm looking at 30% of my traffic. If I'm not looking at those packets, I'm kind of wasting time. It's true. So we look at encryption, it's overhead, it's a pain. I can't read anything because it all looks like garbage. I've got to decrypt it in order to really inspect it. So once I begin to use encryption, everything changes. In 2011, doing network traffic monitoring and analysis of logs on a particular system I was at, 20% of it was SSL. 20%, not a big deal. Snowden, he releases his info in 2013. By last year, it's 70%, whereas it was SSL. I think it was like 68% was SSL. So if I take a look at HTTP versus HTTPS, almost 70% was SSL last year. Everybody went with encryption, which again means my firewall is only inspecting probably about 30% unencrypted traffic and actually can do something about it. So what's happened with that as well? Internet bandwidth, it got less expensive. It's also gotten more robust. Has anyone in here actually decreased their network bandwidth? Anyone? Any takers? Anybody downsize their network bandwidth? No. It's gotten cheaper. People have expanded it. People are using it. Hey, it's business. We want them to make money so then that way they can support the security team. So encryption is that overhead. It's cumbersome. It's a pain. So whatever your normal throughput is for HTTP, quadruple it for the hardware you'll need for encryption. Hardware is what you're going to need. It's the only way to break encryption in the sense of even to actually set up the connection points. You're going to need hardware. I can't emphasize that enough. I can't tell you how often people undersize the hardware and then the connections get slow and then the connections start getting dropped and then you start having problems and you're affecting the business and then they're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and put DLP on a 30-day hiatus. And then that 30 days turns into 60 days. The next thing you're at 90 days, 120 days. So you have not been doing DLP for 120 days, and now they're going, I don't think we need DLP anymore. They do. They're business people. They don't care about security. They want you to take care of security. Sometimes they don't like the price tags associated with it. But the reality is that that's kind of how that experience kind of snowballs. You're impacting my business. I can tell you right now, I had a failed DLP deployment where we basically started cracking the SSL. Things did not go according to plan. Really what happened was that the business didn't tell us about all these other apps that they had going on over the web that were like, homegrown, or somebody needed this to process this, and they didn't tell anybody because, of course, they didn't think it mattered. It took 2 years. That was one that was in 2011, didn't fully get deployed until 2013. Why? Because then we had to do baby steps every step of the way. Every step of the way. I'd almost say when you go to deploy, you do a phased deployment. Do it by teams. Do it by groups. It's much more manageable. So, if you think about it, doing that man-in-the-middle interception, it's costly. You're going to need horsepower. You're going to need hardware. You need resources. So we look at something like this. It kind of looks like spaghetti junction here, but I've got my connections out to the internet. I've got my Brightmail gateways. I've got my internet gateway. I've got monitoring going on. I got email prevention going on. I've got web prevention going on. It can get very complex. The other thing I might want to do is I might want to take that information and not only feed it back to like a central management server, but also feed it to a Splunk server, feed the results to a QRadar server, take that data in and essentially prioritize against my other assets and say, hey, this is important. So again, I don't spend my time necessarily all day long in DLP looking at people doing things they shouldn't be doing, but I can go into QRadar, for example, and pull out the most important things. Like, hey, I think someone's exfilling all this data off of my database server that's really important to me. Those types of events. So if anybody has any questions of this later, let me know. If you have a Palo Alto firewall, there's this neat little trick. You can almost treat it like a span port. You just got to contact your rep. All you got to do is essentially crack the SSL, which it will do for you. Now, as a timeout, you are going to be using hardware assets and hardware resources to do this. Those are expensive boxes, and this may not be the most cost-effective way of doing it. But it's a cheap way of getting it done if you need it done quickly. You want something quick, you want to show something, this is an option. So I can do it. Works just like a span port. This is not ICAP though, just FYI. So what I almost need to do is I need to turn around and like send it off to another switch or something and then literally turn that into a span port. But think of it as a span port where I can just collect things and send it all along. Just something to remember, the stream's read-only, the SSL cannot be blocked or dropped. Okay? Additionally, malware virus activity will not be stopped just because a copy of the contents were dumped to DLP. So what that means is that if I see like some malware coming in, I can't do anything about it. It's already in. Okay? If I use a proxy, for example, I can also, I think I got a proxy slide in here. If I use a proxy, for example, I can go ahead and do a lot of different things where I crack open the SSL. I'll run it through encryption. You can do that with a Palo Alto too, but again, think about the trade-off. You are trading a very expensive box that's good for hardware for doing, virus inspection. It's not a bad thing. They actually do a really good job of it, for example. The only downside is you've got to find that good mix of where is it best to inspect for viruses. I still think it's critical to look for viruses and malware over the network. Is a proxy a cheaper way of doing it? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on what proxy you're using and how much they charge for it. So I definitely find that good cost balance where you're getting malware inspection over SSL along with, your firewall inspection over SSL. Let's see here. So, URL filtering. So it's always a big question. If you're using a proxy server, if you're not using a proxy server, okay? URL filtering is going to be kind of important to DLP as well. A lot of people take the URL filtering for granted, okay? the URL filtering can actually help save you a lot of cycles on DLP. So, if you're using a proxy server, you can make it easier by working with the pack file and URL filtering in one place. So you got some convenience with a proxy server, okay? Your pack file, does everybody know what a pack file is? It's the browser, it's a file that you have in a browser where it says, hey, if you're going to our partner, don't run that through my proxy server, go straight out. Or you can put all types of complex rules in it. I can put in like, this is going to the state of Ohio. Obviously, I have to trust them. I have to send this data to them. I really am not going to inspect this data because it's just going to give me false positives because I know I send socials to them. I'm going to skip it, send it straight out. So I can bypass the DLP functions. I can put that into a pack file. Or if I have a proxy server, I can also drop that into the proxy server that does URL filtering for me, because there are some out there that do that. If you're using that Next Gen Firewall, you have to manage URL filtering at the firewall. There are some pros and cons of that. I'm more of a proxy person. I like using the proxy. I find that it's a little bit more flexible, gives me a lot more options. Okay? If I have access to both, which is really what I like, I'll typically perform standard URL filtering along with a pack file management on the proxy server. So that's where I'll do my blacklist. That's where, you can go out to news websites, but you can't necessarily go out and look at, terrorism or the gambling or, pornography or this or that, whatever that category is. And then on my Next Gen Firewall, I usually use a whitelist. Like for example, people want to go to Microsoft, knock themselves out. Want to go to Cisco, knock yourself out. They're going to go to my business partner. I don't care. Knock themselves out. I'm not going to look at it through my DLP. I'm not going to look at it through anything else. Again, if I have access to both, that's kind of the beauty of it. Do whitelisting on your Next Gen Firewall and do all your URL filtering on your proxy. It's a little bit more convenient. It's easier. So then that way, when people basically bypass your proxy, they're like, well, this kind of sucks because I can't get out to, my favorite gaming website at night because I'm really bored. Well, you should be using the proxy. So again, if you don't get them one way, get them another way. Depress them to the point where it's like, well, you can learn all about Microsoft at night, or you can learn all about Apple at night. Enjoy. Whatever it is that you want to go ahead and throw at them. Kind of continued on this. Remember, I'm only interested in specific targets, okay? If you're going after everything, God love you because you have a lot of free time. Most teams, you've got a junior person that's probably going to go looking through this. I would hope that you're not hiring a $100,000 a year person to go through the DLP logs and go, yep, that's porn. People do it. Hey, there are companies out there that do it. I still, for the life of me, don't understand why, but they do. But you're actually going after targeted events. You can't look at everything. If you think about it, really all DLP is just a filter to gather those events of interest. So, don't have enough time. You want to go after the good stuff. The good stuff could be whatever your business finds of value. I mean, think about this. If you work in a facility that does research and design, what's the value? It's probably going to be things that it's your intellectual property. If you work in, finances, it's probably going to be your customers, your banking customers, your insurance customers. It's that type of data that people want. Again, if I'm a bad guy, I'm going to take whatever I can get from you to go sell it. And when it comes to industries, I'm still baffled. I heard somebody say, well, we're with healthcare. Why would anybody want to attack a hospital? Because they'll make $500. They don't care. That's why they'll attack a hospital. Even if it costs you $5 million, they don't care. The bad guys just don't care. So something to keep in mind when you work with URL filtering, okay? And this can, again, impact the way that you're handling your proxies and, again, the way that you're doing DLP. HTTP is filtered by domains. HTTPS is filtered by IP addresses, which means I could get data that flies through to certain locations, okay? Where can that get a little dicey? If somebody says, oh, we'll skip my partner out here at this IP address, and that IP address belongs to Amazon Web Services, and they put in a huge class B, and next thing you know, you're not looking for DLP going out to a huge class B, and what do the bad guys like to go use these days because they can rent it for $5 a day or $2 a day or 50 cents on the dollar? They like to use Amazon Web Services because they can set up a malware site overnight, run their scam, collect a couple thousands of dollars, and then basically let it all rot, and then Amazon shuts it down. So keep that in mind. A lot of people will go, well, I'm going to filter this whole Class B. Well, are you sure the Class B belongs to them? Because I've actually had analysts where I went in and did audits of the DLP system. I looked at what the analyst was doing, and I'm like, why did you block this? Well, that was one of our business partners. Yeah, but they're using Amazon Cloud Services. And you're basically blocking this entire cloud service. Which means if a bad guy comes in here and he starts exfilling data, we're not going to see it. It was a junior mistake. Showed them what they did wrong, educated them, and brought them up to speed. It's just something to keep in mind. Because again, you know, I don't know about you, but if I have luck, it's bad luck. That's usually how it goes. So avoid liabilities. Here's another thing you might want to do with your URL filtering with DLP. Don't look at financial URLs and retail URLs. If someone's actually exfilling data out to Target, then that's a really bad day for Target to begin with. And you may not know. I hope nobody here works for Target. I'm just using them as an example. But you don't necessarily want to capture with your DLP system everybody who's out there banking. Because what does it turn your DLP system into? It turns it into a huge target now. Now your DLP system, it's a prize for the hackers. In addition to that, what happens if I have an analyst with a drug problem? You know, that analyst slipped by the controls and managed to get, you know, their urine specimen thrown in. They're now sitting there looking at people's banking information. I probably want to limit that. Same thing with retail purchases. You get around the holidays. People were, at the last place I was at, they were like, why are you worried about the proxies and everything going into November? I'm like, it's the holiday season. So what's different? You don't understand. I don't want to see all these credit card numbers going through the DLP system that are belonging to our employees. Okay, I just don't want to see them. So keep that in mind. You'll also, again, like I said, you'll make your DLP system a great target for hacking. You do also want to retire your data from the DLP system after so much time. If you have an investigation, most of the DLP systems out there, you can say keep for eternity, delete after 30 days, 60 days. Work with your legal staff to figure out that retention policy. If they aren't going to work with you, set it as 60, document it, and tell the world, hey, after 60 days, all data within our DLP systems drop. We won't keep it. Only investigations will we keep. So, factors of success. Biggest thing, number one thing, evaluate the culture of the company. If the company is used to, well, every employee is allowed to surf the web. It's a benefit that we don't have to necessarily give them money for. People have actually said that. HR departments have told me that before. Well, surfing the web is a non-compensatory benefit that we give to our employees. Okay, so surfing the web is important to people. That's going to affect how I'm going to do my DLP implementation. If I begin to make people wait 10 seconds or more to get their data, guess what's going to happen? They're going to probably be unhappy. They're going to start calling the help desk. They're going to complain to their managers, and things just kind of snowball from there. Also, look at the generational kind of age groups of the employees. You know, when I get to baby boomers, they typically don't care that it's taking 10 seconds. They don't. I get to like the Gen Xers. I get down towards even millennials. I get towards like, you know, like teenage type of age. You know, this is taking forever. Why is that? I don't know, but it's taken like 2 seconds for it to get here. The expectations are ridiculous. You know, it's kind of funny. Somebody says, you know, think about this. The worst phone that your son's ever going to have, being 15 years old, is an iPhone 6. That's the worst phone he'll ever have. It kind of puts things in perspective. So the expectations of what you find with these generations is, I get the baby boomers, not a big deal. It'll get there when it gets there. You get down towards millennials and it's like, God, this thing's taking forever. It's like 5 seconds. This is just ridiculous. This is unacceptable. You know, and I'm just kind of laughing going, did the page appear? Yeah, okay. So we need to either figure out what's kind of causing the delay, was it within the system, and then, you know, do I just want to make it easy on myself and throw hardware at it? You know, let's throw hardware at it. Get your buy-in from senior management, legal, and HR. Those three groups are critical, okay, when it comes to deploying it. You can't get those groups to buy in. You're going to have a tough time because I guarantee you, you're going to get somebody that's in this group doing something they shouldn't be doing, and then this group is going to come asking you questions, and legal is going to start asking questions about your spy program, as I once was told. No, they literally call it the spy program. Why are we implementing a spy program? I'm like, no, it's data loss prevention. We're trying to prevent it before something bad happens. So our customers they feel better. They know we're doing certain facets of security. It's still a spy program. Because you caught this guy over here doing something he shouldn't have been doing. Or you caught this lady. Oh, and when it comes to the porn filter, by the way, for male and female, it's like 50-50. Yeah, it's a little surprising statistic I found over the years. Yeah, it's pretty even. It's called people. So it's something that you might want to think about is get your buy-in. So if you're going to make it publicly known, that's another good decision you've got to make. Am I actually going to tell my employees I'm doing this? Some companies, they don't even want the employees to have a clue that it's going on. There's something big that they're looking for. Educate the employees of what's going on. Usually the IT people are the first ones to go, you have a man-in-the-middle interception type of thing going on, don't you? And I'm going, well, you know what? The board of directors said that we have to do this. The CIO says we have to do it. The CEO says that he wants this done, or she wants this done. These people of certain positions, they found out about this and they want it to happen. This is not optional. So again, get your buy-in, identify your bad processes. So at first you've got to figure out, who do I want to go after? You don't have all the time in the world, right? You're going to go after the people who are sending 100 social security numbers at a time. And then you'll work your way down towards the 50s, the 20s, the 5s. Before you know it, when somebody sends out 2 social security numbers, you go, that's a little bit strange. And the reason why is because you find that there was that person that was sending out 100 and didn't even know it. They sent it out weekly. You'll find all these broken processes. Go after the habitual offenders too, because what you may find is you'll find this one person who's been emailing out, maybe one at a time, twice a day for the last 2 months, a SOC to send it over to some business partner because she didn't want to use the automated system or he didn't want to actually do some other process. So they just emailed it because, well, it's easy, it's convenient. I don't care. It's not my data. Go after those habitual offenders. Once they know they're being monitored, people will change their behaviors, their activities. And you do have to stay on it. It's a constant ride. You have to constantly stay on and basically let people know that you're watching. They will find out eventually, though. And then show metrics. Your metrics, it should start up in this left corner and go down this way. If it's going the other way, you're doing something wrong. That's what your management wants to see. In fact, I wouldn't send management anything even closely resembling this. I would just say, here are the metrics of the number of things going out that we need to stop, and then here's all the things that are happening to have it go down. And that's how you talk to C-level people, I've found. Workflow. You got to look at your workflow and you got to plan to handle data loss incidents, okay? People think that the hardest part is setting up DLP. DLP setting it up is the easy part. You get it up and running, you're collecting all this data, now what the hell do I do with it? Okay? That's the real problem. I've got to manage the staff, to manage the workflow, to evaluate data loss incidents. I've got to look at and figure out what's important, what's not important. And really the only one that can do it are the people inside your company. I'm not trying to diss, managed services providers, but most of the time they are not going to go in and look at what matters to you or your business. Okay? They are just going to simply go, it's a SOC. Maybe that SOC wasn't intended to go to that party. Maybe it's supposed to go over SSL. But they aren't going to know any better. So usually over time, if you do outsource this, what you'll find is that you could probably bring it back in-house and do it yourself for a cheaper price and save some money and get more resources and have a better overall experience. But you've got to look at your process. You've got to look at your workflow. You've got to figure out what data is important to you, what's not. And again, it's this whole, and I've heard always, you may have something that you use, but it's called PEMC is what I've always heard it as. Plan, execute, measure, correct. It's that big circular thing. I was thinking about putting it in here, but I figured that everyone's got a different one. But you know, you plan, you execute it, you measure as to how effective your DLP program is today, you tweak it, you correct it, and then you do the exact same thing again. You plan, execute, and then you measure it. What, have I reduced my, my exposures? And I correct it. Before you know it, the sources aren't going out the front door. The PII isn't going anywhere. The HIPAA data isn't going anywhere. It's not supposed to be going. And it's literally that easy. You just have to constantly tweak it. And you've got to train the people, even the junior analysts, to do that. It's funny, a lot of people are like, I don't let my junior analysts have admin rights. Well, how do you expect them to grow? I mean, if they really are nothing more than just a, you know, some kid that you hired off the street that doesn't know anything, how do you expect them to grow? I'm a huge stickler for mentoring because I think, honestly, that's where if you give the kids enough room to grow, they'll find things that you could have never dreamed of. They're the ones that are going to be looking at it every single day. And eventually they'll figure out, oh, hey, you know what? If I put this together and this together, I see how they're doing it. Some of the biggest known breaches are usually brought on, they're discovered by the most junior people who basically didn't realize that they weren't supposed to find that type of stuff. So, where can I run into pitfalls? Legal and social troubles. Think about it as politically. If you snare the wrong person, it can get you fired. I do know people who have administered DLP, they've done DLP before, they've been fired. Why? Because they caught the wrong person doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, and they shot the messenger. They'll do it. So you definitely want to handle it in certain ways. I would encourage you to work with HR, for example, if there's a certain issue that's come up. It appears to be an employee-related issue. They're looking at porn. They're intentionally stealing data. Contact HR and let HR make the decisions. You're not HR. You're security, right? Is there any HR people in here? Every now and then I'll find HR people in DLP discussions. But yeah, take it to HR. Make HR make the decision. It's not your problem. Same thing when it comes to legal. You should also figure out how to use DLP evidence for forensic investigations. Because I guarantee you, you will come across an incident that will get somebody fired. DLP finds things of interest. It finds people doing something wrong. If I have 1,000 people in a company, you know somebody eventually is going to do something that they shouldn't have been doing. So keep that in mind when you're looking through it. Once you've vetted your process, stick to it. The problem I found is that people like to gut their DLP and start all over again. You can do that if you're really that bored, but I typically find that all that native kind of tribal information you've gained, it's lost. Now you're trying to go back and kind of redo it. You might do that in certain situations where the entire team left. I've seen it in places where, you know, one person leaves and then the whole team just picks up and just goes, okay, we're going over here because they're getting more money. You might do it in a situation like that, but again, just be careful of just dumping the entire infrastructure that you've just spent 2 years building. Small network changes lead to big problems. Lost taps, diminished feeds. If you're using a span port and that switch is really getting clobbered, guess what happens? It can go down. You can start to lose feeds. You'll start to notice that all of a sudden, you know, your weekly discoveries are going down. You're thinking, oh man, we're doing so awesome. Look at this. We're driving down risk. We're reducing these things. And what you find is that later on, oh, the span port's been flaking out. So when you see trends in that reporting, ask yourself, are we really doing it that phenomenally better? Are the employees that really security aware, or is my span port flaking out? Or is my tap flaking out? Lots of people think, oh, we're doing phenomenal. Nope, we've just been missing all this other stuff that's been going out. Architecture changes, they can drop feeds. Again, you can see things drop. Tweak and retweak your false positives. Go back and address faulty assumptions. So what does that mean? If I assume that this thing does this and this thing does that, later on I may find that my assumption early on was false. Or the person that used to administer the system, and I've seen this before where they go, I got to look at 200 events. Select all, delete, never happened. Yeah, it's a real interesting situation. People do it. Analysts will do it. If the analysts don't believe that anyone's ever going to come in and audit their DLP system, they will do it. You know, especially if you've got young people. You bring in some young people, they're 22, 23, 24, out of college, they're still in the party mode. They come in and they're just like, oh my God, I can't function on a Monday. The weekend was too hard. Delete. They'll do it. So you definitely have to go back and look at those assumptions. Look at, hey, why did we delete 200 events over the weekend? Oh, I accidentally hit something. I made a mistake. You're like, oh, is it because you weren't feeling well? Yeah, that might have been a part of it. Politics, you are going to snare a lion, accept it. Have that process ready beforehand. It's kind of like, you know, are you ever going to get breached? Assume you're going to get breached. Because when you do snare that lion, they will try to take you down. If your HR department isn't going to back you up, if your manager's not going to back you up, expect problems. They are going to come after you. So you need somebody who's going to go fight for you. They need to understand that this can turn into a real political nightmare real quickly. So most common items. Get your hardware. Make sure that you've evaluated your firewall and your proxies if you're doing SSL inspection. Evaluate what's that good blend or the costs. If you don't care throwing money at it, you could do it all on your firewalls. It depends on which firewall you get. Okay? But you're going to probably need mail gateways to actually do some type of ICAP inspection. Server hardware in general, network taps. Software, your license, which can be extremely expensive for something that's basically nothing more than a sniffer with some intelligence on the back end. There's a bunch of regex with sniffers. Your software support. If you're a mid-sized company on day one and you're just going to do network scanning, estimate you need at least one person. You're going to find that if you've never looked at DLP before, you've never looked at your traffic flow, you'll probably find that you've got more data going out the front door than you thought. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, let's see how we do on day one. And they're like, yeah, in the first 30 days, we sent out 45,000 socias. That's actually a real number from the place I was just at. First 30 days DLP, 45,000 socias. Oops. Let's get that below 15,000 for the next 30 days. How does that sound for a goal? And it really was. You're like, let's get it below 10,000. Let's try to get it below 1,000 in a month. You know, these are the goals that we're shooting for. And it really is. It's this whole PEMC thing where you're constantly going back and reevaluating. Over time, the workload should stabilize. But whenever you bring on a new business unit, you bring on some new function, you're going to have a rise. You're going to find that there's these people that just don't care. They don't care because it's not their data. Or they aren't aware. So, contacting me. You're more than welcome to contact me. I'm on Twitter. If you're offended, don't read my Twitter feed. I'm on LinkedIn. You can contact me on LinkedIn. If this is a consulting thing, talk to your SE, your support people. Talk to a member of the clergy if that's really what you're looking for. But the thing is that I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm a really busy person. I've got 3 boys that are in that prime of life where they need my time. So please evaluate that. But if you have questions, I have no problems answering them. So if you want to talk after this, feel free. I'm going to be here, I think, until noonish. I got to go back and meet with the CISO. So there's your exit music. If anyone has any questions, please throw them out there. Any particular questions?
Yeah, how about intellectual property? From a manufacturing perspective, the sources and all that are not as critical as intellectual property, so engineering data.
Okay, so the question was intellectual property and specific to engineering data. A couple things I would key off of. I'd key off of CAD drawings. I would key off of specific types of processes. So if I was manufacturing vehicles, for example, I would look for certain systems that I would be asking myself, why are they even touching the internet? I would go back and I would try to figure out again, manufacturing is kind of different. But I would look at how I could get. I'm trying to think with vehicles in particular. I would look at new VINs possibly going out the door. When it comes to design, I'd really focus on that CAD process. That's really where I would go after it. I'm actually in the process of kind of doing that right now too. So, Yeah, so I'm learning a lot about manufacturing. It's pretty interesting to see how it works. Yeah, that's where, again, you get back to working with the business unit, and the business should be able to tell you what's most critical to them. Like if you lose this, you're going to lose your business, right? It's that type of stuff. Yep, you're welcome. I think I saw a hand over here. All right.